And greetings, everyone, and welcome to Buzz for Good, where we talk all things nonprofit, the people they serve, and the good they do. And today, I want to focus on an exciting nonprofit project called ArtSpace that we hope to bring to the old viscose plant in the Roanoke Industrial Park, and how you are needed to make it happen. But first, I am Michael Hemphill, creator and host of this radio show and the TV show Buzz that airs every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. on Blue Ridge PBS. Also available on our YouTube channel at Buzz for Good, where we feature the great work of nonprofits and the marketing professionals who donate their time and talent to help the nonprofits achieve more buzz. You can stay connected with us on our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube channels, all at Buzz for Good. I want to thank our sponsors, the Roanoke Cultural Endowment, working to provide a long-term funding solution for arts and cultural organizations in Roanoke, RoanokeCulturalEndowment.org. Friendship, a senior living retirement community for citizens of the Roanoke Valley, friendship.us, and Partners in Financial Planning, a Southwest Virginia-based financial management firm, partnersinfinancialplanning.com. And speaking of sponsors, before Buzz, I buzzed as marketing director for Roanoke Catholic School, and one of my favorite highlights of the year was the Shamrock Hill Run. I am thrilled that the school is bringing it back this year, and I'm honored that Buzz can be a sponsor. The Shamrock Hill Run is going to take place on March the 16th, St. Patrick's Day weekend, prior to the downtown Roanoke Parade. Registration for this 5K and 1 mile race through March the 4th is just $20. After March 4th, it's $25, and race t-shirts are guaranteed for all who register by March 4th. Though the school will do its best to honor all registrations. More information at roanokecatholic.com/Shamrock Hill. Now, ArtSpace. What is it? Where is it? And how can you be a part of it? It is my pleasure to welcome to Buzz for Good Amy McGinnis, who works with Ed Walker, who's been developing the whole Riverdale project. She is the team lead to bring ArtSpace to the Riverdale project and to Roanoke. And welcome.
Thanks so much, Michael. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So, I've been so excited about Riverdale because, the whole old Roanoke Industrial Park has been this curiosity, for all the time we've been in Roanoke. Yeah, right. So it's like this kind of Mad Max, Fury Road type, apocalyptic setting, but there are also these really cool businesses that are already in place there, but I never really knew what was happening there. And then the news broke, I guess it was about 2 years ago?
Oh, just a year.
A year ago.
It seems sometimes like 5 years, but yeah, it was literally around this time in 2023.
Okay, yeah, where Ed Walker and the city announces that the whole 100 acres has been purchased, and Ed is going to start working to redevelop the whole place into something. Well, kind of something is the question mark, right? But it was just really exciting, and I view it as probably the most significant, exciting economic development project in Roanoke over definitely the last 10 years, but maybe some could argue the last 25 years, just based on the geography that it covers. So
absolutely, I think I definitely have that feeling that that as I look back in however many years, it will be the transformative project in Roanoke in my lifetime.
Yeah. So
not that I've been here for my whole life, but
well, me either. I've been here, since '97, but it's amazing. So tell me kind of what the vision is overall for Riverdale.
I think the vision is that it will simply become a thriving place to be, as opposed to where it's been. Of course, viscose, the old viscose, as people refer to it, was originally begun in the early 1900s. I guess it was about 1919, and it was an incredibly thriving place, right? It was described as its own, I believe, its own sort of mini city, and they had parades and tons of housing, 5,000 people employed there. And so while it won't return to that same thing, it's certainly the vision of it is to take it back to something that is thriving and a bustling community of its own.
Yeah, and so this bustling community would include housing. Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, talk about all the different things that you envision being in Riverdale.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yes, so definitely housing. It will be residential, have a residential component. It'll have vibrant community center activities. So you'll have food and beverage, arts and recreation, definitely a huge outdoors component. Uh,
It's right on the river, right next to the
right
greenways,
next to the
right beside
river,
Mill
right?
Mountain. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And access up to the trails on Mount Mill Mountain. In and a big bike component. I think we're starting to really feel that that's going to be a piece of it. There's acreage on the east side of the property that adjoins the butts the river that is just crying out to be sort of mountain bike trails and skills areas,
Nice.
things like that.
Yeah.
So it's a place that I think we really feel like you could either live there and not leave for an entire weekend, or you could come in from outside and just and stay there and not again not really feel like you need to leave to go see anything else. But of course, you might be very much drawn to downtown because it's just a mile and some away
Yeah.
to get there.
Yeah. It's so exciting. I mean, the I don't know if people fully appreciate the scope of this project. I mean, because there are how many buildings have like individual buildings have you counted in
I
this?
think there are about 20 individual buildings, and we say sort of a million square feet under roof. Although many of those roofs are not watertight at this point. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, uh, and then out of that, so you've got some residential, and you'll have some commercial, and you'll have some
Light
restaurant,
industry,
light
yes, some of those
industry.
folks that are currently there that are doing works. There's B&R Sheet Metal, there's Noke Van is a thriving, booming business that started in a tiny, like, I don't know, 200 square foot building and is now in a substantially larger building there. And we anticipate all of these businesses will stay and more will come in.
Yeah, and then there's this arts piece that
Yes.
uh, right now is being called ArtSpace. But how did that originate?
Well, Riverdale has long been home to a number of artists. Currently, Art Rat Studio is one that many people are familiar with, and they are there and thriving, and we absolutely intend to keep them there. Dave Wertz is a metal sculptor, and he's there. And so there's always been just this idea of one of the drivers of a thriving and bustling community is the art scene. And so we always knew that we wanted to bring in as much of that as possible. And so that's how ArtSpace came into the picture. Ed will tell you that he's been trying to go steady with ArtSpace for 25 years. I believe that they first came to town about 25 years ago to look at a development that he was looking at, which was the Cotton Mill Lofts.
Ah, okay.
And they did not ultimately end up coming here. There were, things that happened. I think probably the financial piece of it was the biggest challenge. But he got in touch with them again and invited them to come to Roanoke. And truly not just to look at Riverdale, but he knows the influence that they can have, and the impact that they can have. And so they came in September, and did a preliminary feasibility study here, and they looked at four different properties. They looked at one at the Melrose Plaza property, in Northwest, and they looked at the Walker Foundry in the Norwich area. They looked at a property on Williamson Road, and they looked at Riverdale. And of those four, they felt that Riverdale was the most viable opportunity. So that was September, and they were really, in their words, I think, pretty blown away by the creative scene in Roanoke. There's just so much here in terms of existing arts assets. We have, a lot of galleries
Mhm.
and arts adjacent businesses, and they visited places like Common Clay Collective, which is on Shenandoah Avenue and is an incredible undertaking and studio. Um, and then they visited, they saw the public art, which I think everybody who's living in Roanoke now sees just this sort of explosion of
Right.
public art that's happened
Yeah.
in the last 5 or 6 years, and the Roanoke Arts Commission, under the guidance of Doug Jackson, of course, has a lot to do with that because he's done incredible work in finding funding and figuring out creative ways to engage
Mhm.
the artistic community here. Um, so all of that to say that ArtSpace was blown away. They visited a lot of places, and they talked with a lot of people. There were we had focus groups, and we had a public event, and they presented and listened a lot at all of those. So at that point, they let us know, it was kind of nice. They let us know before they left town that they were recommending that we move to the next phase of the process, which is a market study. And
Hang on
that's
a
where
second.
we are now.
I need to reintroduce you, and also do want to put in a little plug for Buzz because thanks to Doug Jackson and this whole arts scene, we were fortunate enough over the last 2 years to create 6 episodes of Buzz that revolve around arts and culture in Roanoke, and that we just wrapped that up
Right,
in January, and I was blown away, and I've been here since. For 27 years, but I was blown away by the art scene just by
right.
being more in part of that. So anyway, joined here on Buzz for Good by Amy McGinnis, who is working with Ed Walker on the redevelopment of the old Viscose Roanoke Industrial Park, and is working as the team leader to bring ArtSpace to Roanoke. And you've talked about, kind of ArtSpace coming in, but take one step back. Why ArtSpace, and what does ArtSpace bring to a community that perhaps the community could not do on its own?
Well, ArtSpace brings in, and I don't know that a community couldn't do it on its own, but it's certainly difficult. ArtSpace is a national nonprofit based out of Minnesota, and they are the leader in the nation, and perhaps more broadly, as a nonprofit developer for the arts. So
Okay.
their mission is affordable living and creative spaces for
Hmm.
artists.
Okay.
And they've been doing this for like 35 years, and they have close to 60 installations, developments around the country.
Hmm.
They don't yet have one in Virginia, and we would very much like to be the first.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. That I appreciate that because I was I've been hearing about ArtSpace, but wasn't sure exactly, what it was about them particularly that made this,
Right.
them such a good partner for this project. Because I'm also wondering, I mean, I would think that there are more financially lucrative opportunities for that space than art, unfortunately, in this country. But
Um, well, that's an interesting concept because could somebody come in and put market rate housing in there and make more money? Perhaps, but if you think about the outsized impact that creatives have, then I think, dollar for dollar, this is an incredible opportunity for Riverdale because it will become, in our hope, speaking it into existence here, it will become a hub for just creative energy and pursuits, and that will draw people 100% to want to live there, to want to visit there, and to just engage with that community.
that was a leading question, by the way. So
Well, I'm glad
I
I
was trying to, that was a softball pitch there, just hoping that I could tee you up for that. No,
thank you.
all right. So now we're at this next phase where they're doing a market feasibility or market study for this. And part of that has been, I know you've been heavily promoting a survey that's out there to get
Right.
people to fill it out, I guess, to help out with that market study. So
Right. The
where are we?
survey actually is the market study.
Okay.
That is how ArtSpace gleans the data that it needs in order to make a decision to come into a community, to know whether it's going to be viable for them a financial standpoint to make the investment. So that market study began a couple of weeks ago, and it runs sort of through the middle of March. So anybody who's seen a QR code or heard anything about the survey um, knows that we are in fact heavily promoting it, because without the data from that survey, without those each and every individual response, we cannot make the case to ArtSpace that they should come here.
Hmm.
So we're looking to reach as broadly and deeply into the creative communities in Roanoke to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. And the survey covers information from what is your creative pursuit, and they give a lot of options because their definition of a creative is broad. Um, and at the end of it is other. You can always fill in your own creative pursuit. What they tend to say is, if you believe that your pursuit is a creative endeavor, we are likely to as well. So that's who could reside there, who could live in an art space project. And then there's additional, because it is a mixed use development, there is additional space available for creative use, whether it could be a studio that you rent for a year or lease for a year. It could be short-term rentals of space for performance or other opportunities. It could be even built out as nonprofit office space. So all of that is dictated by what the responses are from the survey. ArtSpace doesn't have sort of a cookie cutter, okay, we're going to come in and build this particular thing. They definitely target it to the needs of the community. And so that's why everybody filling in their own particular interests and desires and needs on the survey is so critical.
And does this survey reside for people who are just listening?
Right. I can't show you my QR code, can I? If you go to roanokearts.org/artspace, you will find the survey there. You can also more conveniently perhaps find us on your social media at Roanoke Artspace. No, excuse me, that's Artspace Roanoke, or on Instagram, it's Artspace ROA.
Okay, so roanokearts.org/artspace.
Yes,
Facebook is Roanoke Artspace.
Artspace, correct.
And then
And
Instagram is ArtSpace ROA.
ROA. And I honestly think that I hope, I pray that our what is it, SEO, if you just type in Roanoke Art Space into your search bar, you should be able to find it as well.
Okay. All right. Once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by with Amy McGinnis, who is working with Ed Walker on the redevelopment of the old Roanoke Industrial Park into this phenomenal 100-acre community with residential housing and commercial and restaurants, and we got to have some bars in there. And then this very cool art space that they're hoping to develop in partnership with ArtSpace, a Minnesota-based nonprofit that seeks to promote sustainable living and art spaces for artists throughout the country. And this would be their first location in Virginia. And you mentioned earlier that you're trying to make the case right now to ArtSpace for them to invest in Roanoke. What does that investment look like? Is it time, talent? Is there funding as well?
Oh no, I mean ArtSpace, if they choose to move here, let me back up on that. It is when ArtSpace comes into a community, they actually own the
Uh,
the enterprise. They come in, they own it, they develop it, and they run it. They probably outsource their running it to somebody,
sure.
but they have a company, a division that does that. So it is theirs. They aren't investing. I mean, obviously, they're bringing a tremendous amount of expertise, but they fully fund the project before they put a shovel in the ground. So
Wow.
that is a combination. How do they fund their projects? It's a combination of things like low-income housing tax credits, and they they've been at this for 35 years, so they have other philanthropic pockets that they can reach into and reach out to. There would be investment, from the state and government as well. We're very fortunate to have some good partners at the state level who are very interested in seeing this project come to life. And there would be a philanthropic look as well for funding.
I see. I see. And so
That's
how much of the 100 acres would be devoted to art space?
Oh, great question. So really they would just have one building, perhaps two. I don't, it depends on it depends on honestly how much need the company shows and expresses, how much square footage that they would end up developing. But we would anticipate anywhere from 40 to 70, 80 units of residential, and then a solid amount of square footage for those commercial nonprofit ventures.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. But there would still be then additional space outside of the art space for the other things we've been talking
Oh,
about.
absolutely. Right. I mean,
Uh,
as we said, we have a million square feet under roof, 20 buildings. They're only going to take one of them in all likelihood.
Gotcha. Well, how exciting. How exciting. All right. As we kind of wrap up here with Amy McGinnis, working with the Riverdale Project to bring art space to Roanoke, any final like call to action for people who are tuning in? I mean, obviously, yeah, you want them to go and fill out this survey to make the case to ArtSpace for why they need to be here. But why is that so important for Riverdale now and Roanoke in the future? Like, what's the potential here?
Well, I think Riverdale writ large has the potential to be incredibly transformative. There is it resides in the southeast quadrant of the city. I kind of hate to even bring the quadrants into the conversation, but they are a reality. And Southeast, in truth, has some of the very worst health and other outcomes in the entire city. And that's something we, as the Riverdale team, are keenly aware of, and to think about bringing a positive and energetic influence and an economic driver into that community is key. And ArtSpace is a key to that, as we talked about, in this way of bringing a true energy and thriving feel to a community, that the arts and creative spaces are a huge part of that. So I think that's it, is that we want to see that be a part of Roanoke's future, and feel that it can be incredibly helpful to Southeast and to the whole city.
Love it. Love it. Well, I've got to go fill out my survey and encourage
Thank you,
everyone
Michael.
here. And that survey is open until March
Yeah,
the
it's
some
somewhere in
mid-March.
March,
Okay.
but get to it today. There's
Yes.
no reason to wait. But if you
Yes.
follow us on socials, and help to push out the information, that's incredible. And again, the definition of a creative is anybody who has any creative passion or pursuit in their life, whether you make any money from it, whether you ever aspire to make any money from it. It's really about about a creative part of you that you and that qualifies you as a creative, and we encourage you to fill out the survey.
Yeah. So once again, go to roanokearts.org/artspace, or just Google Roanoke Art Space, and that'll take you there as well. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. Follow, share, do all the things to make sure that ArtSpace knows exactly what a creative community Roanoke is, and we want to get them here to help revitalize the Riverdale project
Correct.
at the old Roanoke Industrial Park. So, Amy McGinnis, thank you so much again for coming on to Buzz for Good and sharing with us this fabulous project, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Michael.
All righty, that will do it for today's show. You can stay connected with us on our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube channels, all at Buzz for Good. Thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you back here next time on Buzz for Good. And until then, please keep being a Buzz for Good in your community. Bye now.